Swayam Prabha, Digital India, Educated India.
Good morning to all of you again. Thanks for joining. Now let us talk about something important, based on which we will do some problems, etc., etc. The components of energy. This is easy, actually, very easy. So we know that we have a system. Evaporation, hold on to your question, not now. Not now. Just keep this in mind. Towards the end of the course, if I feel like, I will explain. Also, before you ask me to do that, it's a great question. Ask me to do that. Please do not forget one terminology I have taught you in the morning. It's an equilibrium phase diagram. First thing you find out is evaporation an equilibrium process? That's a clue I will give. I will not answer it right now, not feeling like. Because when I talk about adiabatic saturation, I will talk about evaporation in greater detail. Or this is my system or whatever. So handwriting is not going good today. I'm not at all impressed with this. Okay. So what are the components of energy of a system? What are the components? There are three components. What are those? Easy. Very, very easy. I take a note of your concern. Evaporation and phase diagram. Very good. Shayan. Ayush. Come down, come down. No rotational, translational vibration. Come down, come down. That's components of internal energy. That is the problem. Yes. So Sneh and Shayon and Sai Vardhan, all of you have given the correct answer. Everybody knows this. So let us not waste our time also. Internal energy, we are going to talk. So yeah. So let's say as chemical engineers or biotechnologists, we are going to talk about, let's say, reactors or combustion units or whatever. About the specific requirements. It is also very unlikely that you will have your reactor mounted on a Ferrari car, which is moving or running at 200 kilometers per hour. So see, for most of the systems, it's a joking statement, but it actually carries the message I would like to convey. For most of the system that we are going to study, or which you have studied so far, for example, this piston cylinder, this, that, you have always seen that the piston is moving. But very rare cases, maybe in JEE days, maybe one or two, the pendulum was moving in an accelerating car and it tilts and all these problems you have solved, moving reference frame. You have hardly looked into issues related to kinetic energy change or potential energy change. So it does not happen. So most of the things that are going to happen to us, or most of the stuff we are going to concentrate, are going to be related to internal energy. Now comes the concept of what are the components. So I won't even invite great discussion. Is it clear? So we all understand about kinetic energy, potential energy, and we understand that for static systems, right, neither kinetic energy nor potential energy static system fixed at a location, neither kinetic energy nor potential energy are going to play a very important role. Now, let us look into what are the components of internal energy. So what are the components of internal energy? Speed and temperature. So again, kinetic energy, but this is internal kinetic energy. Potential energy, but this is internal potential energy. And the third component is rotation, vibration, etc. Or you can even write separate one, rotation and vibration. So this everybody understands. Now what is internal kinetic energy? It is the internal energy due to what? Mute please. Internal kinetic energy is due to Shubham Kumar, what is particles? Random motion, translational motion of the particles, not gas molecules. Liquids also have significant amount of internal kinetic energy. Molecules. So gas molecules are not particles. There is a fundamental or a large difference between the again Rishabh, what is particle? Get your pedagogy corrected. Everything is not fluid dynamics. We talk about fluid particle. What is particle in the context of kinetic energy? Two of you have written particle. Correct yourself. Don't use the word particle. What is particle here? Are there particles really? All others have mostly given the correct answer. Is the translational energy? No. Vaishnavi, no. Certainly not intermolecular forces. Motion is responsible for kinetic energy. Intermolecular forces is responsible for the potential energy. Don't club them. Motion of the molecules, random motion of the molecules, Brownian dynamics, whatever you say, translational motion of the molecules, it's all correct. Particle is a wrong word, and intermolecular forces does not contribute to internal kinetic energy. Intermolecular forces contribute to internal potential energy. And what is the expression of this kinetic energy? Kb into T. I have seen many people, none of you will be, but I'll come across large cross section of people. Many people have some difficulty with these two expressions. Yeah, ठीक है, 1 point. Kb into T is fine for the time being. We'll come to what is the value of that. So let me ask the whole class. You all know. All of you are very clear about the difference between these two. Sneh, what expression are you writing? Don't write stuff which are wrong. Kinetic energy scales as temperature. The expression that at least you have written in the chat box gives a feeling that temperature is at the denominator. Don't write stuff which are wrong. For the time being, Kb into T is perfectly fine for us. Clear with everyone? And everyone understands the difference between these two? Yes, Kt is fine. Internal kinetic energy. Some people write it K, some people write it Kb. This is the Boltzmann constant, I think. Just check it out. Yeah, this is the Boltzmann constant, and I think in the context of radiation, you have the Stefan-Boltzmann constant. Clear with everyone? Whatever we discussed is clear with everyone? Everybody understands internal kinetic energy now? Great. And everybody understands the difference between these two? One is the external kinetic energy, if we can say, or the kinetic energy of the system due to its macroscopic motion. And one is the internal kinetic energy of the system due to the molecular motion. What is the most important difference between the two? Internal kinetic energy is a function of temperature. Whereas kinetic energy of the system has the, I mean, come on, I'm coming to rotation. Don't keep on asking questions about all the complicated stuff. Rotational kinetic energy is not included in the internal kinetic energy. The answer is no. For an ideal gas, there is no rotational kinetic energy. That's the reason. Please do not always overcomplicate stuff. I'm coming to it. I am tempted to ask the whole class a question. What is an ideal gas? And don't give an answer that follows the ideal gas law. I was trying to go step by step because it was a very important question. What is an ideal gas? But some of you decided that you won't allow me to finish. It's not in the negative sense. You are rushing. Please do not rush. I prefer to do it slowly, right? Adrija, very close, but not only intermolecular forces. It has no intermolecular forces, no. No interaction between molecules. Again, you are giving a myopic answer, all of you. Very close, but you are then missing out the rotation and vibration part. There is no intermolecular. So essentially, if you look at this header now, and I'm very happy the way the class mostly gave. The answer is, for an ideal gas, the internal energy comprises only of internal kinetic energy. No volume of molecules, zero intermolecular forces, no rotation, no vibration. See, everybody is telling about no intermolecular interaction. And then 2 minutes back, one of your friend was asking me about the rotational kinetic energy. So yes, there is no intermolecular interaction, no potential internal potential energy. Yeah, elastic collision, all that is consequence. We all know ideal gas law. So there is no internal potential energy, which means that there is no interaction between the molecules. I'm coming to Van der Waals equation of state. I can write in a minute's time. Just wait. But there is no rotation and no vibration also. Right? Or in other words, an ideal gas is one for which the internal energy of the system comprises only of internal kinetic energy. I don't take this moment of inertia answer well. So, which does not reveal much. How can you correlate moment of inertia to lack of intermolecular interaction, Sanskar? Your answer is correct from the StatMech point of view, but it's not a simple one. There is no point in keeping science exclusive that is not understood by all. So how can you correlate? It's a question. Sanskar Singh, kindly answer. What you have defined as the definition of ideal gas, can you please correlate how it justifies that there is no internal kinetic internal potential energy, or there is no intermolecular interaction? Can you please explain? Very good. So now that you know that what you have said is correct, you need to connect it to the reality. Okay, do it. Try it out, figure it out. Your answer is absolutely well taken, right? But try it out and figure it out. Also, the concept of ideal gas is an assumption. So based on whatever we discussed, what are the most likely candidates of ideal gas? What type of gases are most likely candidates for ideal gas? Is oxygen a very likely candidate for an ideal gas? Noble, inert, kindly come up with a generic answer. Very close, all four of you, all this hydrogen, no shine, argon, generic answer. Why you are repeatedly writing, all of you are writing inert gases with 3 degrees of freedom? What is 3 degrees of freedom, Sneh? Again, you are messing up with something. Helium. Why helium? All of you are missing the generic phase. None of you have come up with the generic phase. Very good, Pratik. Monoatomic gases. Very, very good. Really well taken answer from Pratik. Monoatomic gases is ideal candidate to become an ideal gas. Why? Because if you have a monoatomic gas, there is no possibility of rotation, there is no possibility of vibration. There is no axis for rotation, no axis for vibration. Is it clear? Right? And then only thing that you need to understand, of course, why this helium and this noble gases are ideal candidates. All of you are writing the right thing. Because of their atomic structure, right? There is no polar interaction because it's all full, they don't react. So therefore, the intermolecular interaction for these type of system is bare minimum, right? And then only the assumption you need to add is that they do not occupy any finite space. Therefore, they are the closest approximation to ideal gases. Of course, hydrogen, nitrogen, ammonia, everything we consider as ideal gases. Remember, for your life and for this course, steam or water vapor is not an ideal gas. Therefore, the equation PV equal to nRT you cannot apply for steam. Is it clear? But Pratik really appreciated monoatomic gases. That's the correct answer. Clear to everyone? Great. So we now also understand that the moment we talk about internal potential energy, so what is the genesis of this internal potential energy? What is the genesis of this internal potential energy? Intermolecular interactions. So I will use the word interaction, not forces. Right. So what is intermolecular interaction, or what type of intermolecular interactions you know? Bond energy? No. No. What is a bond? Intermolecular, right? Intermolecular. Bond is a part of what? Rahul? Yes, Siddhant. Van der Waals forces, of course. Rahul, we are talking about the interaction between two molecules, right? This is molecule 1, this is molecule 2. Is there a bond between two molecules? The answer is no. Even if there is a bond, the bond is inside the molecule. It is part of this molecular system. Therefore, bond energies do not directly influence the intermolecular interaction. You ask the question, this is a mistake many people do. Is the concept clear now? Great. So what is Van der Waals interaction? Those of you who have written Van der Waal as a single word, that's not the way to write a Dutch name. Tanmay Vijay Wagle has sort of written it almost perfectly. Only thing, Tanmay, you need to worry about, firstly, it's not Van der Waals, it's Van der Waals. So your V and W got swapped, and the W will be capital. That's how it is written, Van der Waal. Momentarily interaction. Wow, Snell, what nice terminology. Instantaneous interaction. But more importantly, what type of interaction is it? And I have a question which is a teaser now. Electromagnetic polarization of molecule. Is hydrogen bond a Van der Waals interaction? I want to teach you something and then finish. Let's see if it is possible. There are three types of Van der Waals interaction possible. It goes by various types of name, but I would prefer even to write it as not even Van der Waals interaction, three types of intermolecular interaction. Yes, Pradipti, they are weak, of course, but that's good enough for many things. So can the class fill up these three arrows? What exactly I mean? It may not be the pedagogically perfect answer. Yes, Abhilash, ideally, ideal gases do not have internal potential energy. That's the definition. So that's the discrimination now you are picking up. All along you have talked about internal energy to be comprising of kinetic energy and potential energy and rotation and vibration, and you have always considered it to be an ideal gas. You never cared to understand clearly, it's not you in particular, it's a conceptual mistake that many people do, that if you are, the moment you are talking about internal interactions or intermolecular interactions, which all of you are very comfortable knowing, the moment you are talking about complicated terms like rotation and vibration, immediately you are not talking about an ideal gas, because an ideal gas will have only internal kinetic energy. And in the very next class, we will see a manifestation of that. A very simple manifestation. When you write this formula, no, CV is equal to the specific heat at constant volume is equal to 3/2 R, that itself takes that assumption into consideration. Otherwise, you won't get it from a kinetic theory of gases. Hizome, Debye, London forces, these are the names, very well taught, very induced. Dipole, ion dipole, yeah. So dispersion, dipole, yeah, mostly you know. So I will just correct the pedagogy. Induced dipole. So that is the beauty of the whole thing. These are the cohesive forces. So even in two charge neutral molecules, there will be interaction, and that's because of the fact, because of what? As somebody wrote the term momentary interaction, right? It's not, I would not use the term momentary, but it is attributed to. So what exactly is this induced dipole interaction attributed to at the molecular level? What exactly at the molecular level is responsible for this induced dipole interaction? And let me finish the second one is permanent dipole. Very good, Shubham Kumar. Polarization of what? I will use the terminology instantaneous localization of electrons. Happy? Right. So here is the first molecule. There is an instantaneous localization of the charge that induces a delta plus charge on the neighboring molecule. This is in a nutshell the induced dipole interaction, right? And what you need to understand is instantaneous. Why? Because if this is a t equal to t0, at t equal to t1, the location of this charge localization in the first molecule changes, and it's going to induce a dipole delta plus in another molecule. So at any instance of time, you have a delta minus and a delta plus, so there is an attraction between these two molecules, but there is no net movement of the molecules, because by the time the molecule understands that there is a net attraction working and I need to move, what has happened is the localization itself has disappeared. The localization is acting between different molecules now. So this is, in a nutshell, a sort of a understanding of a very complicated quantum mechanical concept like van der Waals force for dummies. Is it clear? And the strength of the van der Waals force, many of you might be knowing about the Lennard-Jones potential and all that, is A divided by r to the power 6, where r is the separation distance between the nucleus. In fact, r can never tend to 0, because these two nucleus, if in order to r to tend to 0, these two nucleuses must merge, and that does not happen. So if you bring the molecules very close to each other, there is a very steep repulsion. So this is how the curve looks like. None of them are in your syllabus or whatever, but it is for your learning. So this is the attractive part. This is 1 by r to the power 6, and this is the very steep repulsion or scales as 1 by r to the power 12. When does this repulsion start? If the molecules are brought very close to each other, their electron cloud starts to overlap, right? So when the electron cloud starts to overlap, there is repulsion, right? So this is what is known as the bond repulsion, BORN, bond repulsion. So this is generically the expression of van der Waals forces of the induced dipole type interaction. Of course, the class is going to check out one thing: can hydrogen bonding be considered as a van der Waals force? And as Sneh, I think, wrote all the correct terminologies, that the London forces, the Kizom forces, and some other forces. I forget these names. I do not remember what it is. So the beauty of this interaction is this interaction takes place between molecules which are apolar. Of course, here what you understand, that one of the molecule is already polar, and that is inducing a dipole on a neighboring apolar molecule. And here what you understand, that there is interaction between, right, polar molecule and polar molecule, right? So please do understand that this interaction, induced interaction, or the London forces as they call it, is omnipresent. So even in this particular case, if it is case 2, this is case 1, and this is case 3, case 2 will also have case 1 present, right? Even if you have a polar molecule, there is always going to be this induced dipole interaction, and same over here. So this remains, and depending on whether 2 or 3 are going to be active or not, that depends whether you have a permanent dipole in the system. Is it clear? Is it clear to the class? So now, can we understand the process of liquefaction of gas or liquefaction of gas? So what you do, we all know that if you take a gas, right, and apply pressure, okay, so it liquefies, provided it's below critical temperature. Can you imagine what goes on? We are just left with 3 minutes, so we have to do a rush, and maybe Saturday's class I will pick up from here. Do you understand what is the process? So what do you do by compressing the gas? By compressing the gas, you are actually bringing, right? You are actually bringing the gas molecules close to each other, right? And as you bring in the gas molecules close to each other, what are you also doing? You are reducing the intermolecular spacing between them. Or in other words, you are allowing them now to interact with each other. It is like putting 50 of you in a room, all unknown people, just JEE entrants, and then say you become friends. It's exactly like that. Right now, you are all scattered all over the country. So you, thank God you were here together last year. But let's say the new batch joins and we go straight away for an online teaching. They will not become friends because they do not know each other. It's exactly the same thing. By liquefaction, and you must also be knowing, for liquefaction is typically done at low temperature. Why? By applying pressure, we increase the intermolecular interactions. By reducing the temperature, we actually reduce the kinetic energy. So what is the fundamental difference between liquid and gas? Gas is dominated by the kinetic energy of the internal kinetic energy of the molecule. Liquid is dominated by internal potential energy of the molecule, right? The cohesion dominates. So very few number of molecules will be able to go away, overcoming the cohesion, right? So essentially, you need to create a situation where for the system, the internal potential energy is stronger than the internal kinetic energy, or in other words, the intermolecular interactions are higher than the kinetic energy. Is it clear? And there was a question about evaporation. So kindly think of evaporation. I don't have the time to talk about it today. Kindly think of evaporation this way. Okay, now what is so special about critical temperature? In order to understand the actual, and if there is a doubt, because I have to finish it in a minute's time, I will start from this particular point in the next class. Just remind me. Please also look into the expression of the intermolecular interactions. That is something like it only depends on the separation distance of the molecules. There is no functionality of temperature. Whereas internal kinetic energy is Kb into T or K into T, and that's a function of temperature, right? This is clear to all? So if you increase the temperature, the kinetic energy of the molecules increase. In contrast, the potential of the energy of the molecules do not change as a function of temperature. So what is critical temperature now? Critical temperature, you have increased the molecule, the kinetic energy of the molecules, that the strength of the potential energy can never match to the strength of the internal kinetic energy. And therefore, liquefaction is not possible, because you, however pressure you apply, however close you try to bring the molecules have so much kinetic energy that the strength of the intermolecular forces, which must be higher than that of the internal kinetic energy, in order to ensure that the molecules are sort of bound together to form a liquid, it's not possible. This is the physical significance of critical temperature. Is it clear to the class? So thank you very much. I will stop here. Thank you.